Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the pristine council chamber, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she faced the assembled representatives of the galactic hegemony. The chamber's crystalline walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, each species communicating in their preferred wavelengths of light. To the untrained eye, it was beautiful. To Elena, it was suffocating. "Human," spoke Archon Zethkar, his voice a harmonic blend of frequencies that made the translator implant behind Elena's ear buzz uncomfortably. The Velnari's four eyes fixed on her with what she had learned to recognize as disdain. "The Council has reached its decision regarding your species' continued disruptions." Elena remained silent, though her jaw tightened imperceptibly. 3 years. 3 years of diplomatic negotiations, of trying to find humanity a place among the stars that didn't involve subjugation or extinction. The other species had made their positions clear from the beginning. Humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too loud for civilized galactic society. "The terms are simple," continued Zethkar, his massive form shifting in the gravitational field that served as his chair. "Humanity will submit to neural pacification protocols. Your aggressive impulses will be chemically suppressed. Your military capabilities will be dismantled. Your colonies will be administered by appropriate hegemony representatives." He paused, the chamber's lights dimming as if in emphasis. "In exchange, your species will be preserved in a manageable state." The chamber fell silent except for the barely audible hum of life support systems. Elena could feel the weight of countless eyes upon her. Compound eyes, photosensitive patches, optical sensors that had evolved in the light of alien suns. They expected submission. They expected fear. Instead, Elena smiled. "Archon," she said, her voice carrying clearly in the vast space, "I appreciate the Council's generous offer, but I'm afraid I must decline on behalf of humanity." A ripple of bioluminescent shock pulsed through the assembled representatives. The Thekmori delegation buzzed in their harmonic language, while the silicon-based Graltech emitted electromagnetic frequencies that made the chamber's lights flicker. "You decline?" Zethkar's voice carried a note of disbelief. "Human, perhaps your translation systems are malfunctioning." This was not a request. This was a decree. Elena's smile widened, and something in her expression made several of the nearer delegates unconsciously shift away from her. "Oh, I understood perfectly, Archon. You want us quiet. You want us still. You want us broken." She took a step forward, her boots echoing on the crystal floor. "But here's something you might not understand about humans. We've never been good at doing what we're told." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices, translated into a dozen human languages simultaneously. Through the chaos, Elena heard fragments. "Insolence. Military action. Extermination protocols." But Elena wasn't finished. She reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small, primitive-looking object. A wooden drumstick carved from earth oak and worn smooth by generations of human hands. "My great-grandfather carried this with him during the Terran-Mars conflict," she said, her voice somehow cutting through the alien chatter. "My grandfather took it to the asteroid mining wars. My father had it during the colony rebellions." She held it up, and the simple piece of carved wood seemed to command the attention of every being in the chamber. "Do you know what this represents?" Zethkar's optical organs focused on the object with obvious confusion. "A primitive percussion implement?" "A war drum," Elena corrected. "For 10,000 years, humans have beaten drums before battle. Not because we love war, but because we refuse to go quietly into the dark." She struck the drumstick against the chamber's crystal floor, and the sharp crack echoed like a gunshot through the space. "You think you know humanity," she continued, her voice rising with each word. "You think we're just another violent species to be managed and controlled? But you've made a fundamental error in your calculations." Another strike against the floor. Crack. "You assume that our violence comes from ignorance, from primitive instincts that can be suppressed." Crack. "You believe that once we've seen the glory of your galactic civilization, we'll naturally want to submit, to become smaller versions of ourselves for the sake of peace." Crack. "But our violence doesn't come from ignorance, Archon. It comes from love." The chamber had fallen silent again, but this time the silence felt different. Dangerous. Elena began to pace, her footsteps and drumstick creating a steady rhythm on the crystal floor. "We fight for our children's right to dream of stars. We rage against anyone who would limit their potential. We go to war for the radical idea that every human being deserves the freedom to choose their own path. She stopped directly in front of Zethkar's gravitational field, close enough that its effects made her hair stand on end. You want to know what humanity's response is to your generous offer of chemical lobotomy and managed existence? Elena raised the drumstick high above her head. Here it is. She brought it down hard against the crystal floor. The crack this time was louder, deeper, and seemed to resonate through the very structure of the chamber. Several delegates flinched, their various sensory organs recoiling from the sudden aggressive sound. That, Elena said quietly, is the sound of humanity's war drums. And trust me when I tell you, Archon, once we start beating them, we don't stop until the fight is over. She turned her back on the assembled council, a gesture of dismissal that sent shockwaves through the diplomatic gathering. You have 6 months to reconsider your position. After that, she paused at the chamber's entrance, not bothering to turn around. Well, after that, you'll discover exactly why every species in this galaxy learned to fear the sound of approaching footsteps long before they learned to fear the silence of space. Elena walked out of the chamber to the sound of her own footsteps, leaving behind a room full of beings who were beginning to understand that they had just made a terrible miscalculation. Behind her, in the sudden quiet, one could almost hear the distant echo of drums, the war drums of humanity. And they were getting louder.